shows me that we are live. I'm gonna start the
I see
intro.
what look like your freeze frame.
You're on. Are you on YouTube now?
Facebook.
Okay, that's
Oh, okay.
no, that's earlier. Those are the tests. Yeah, I already tried all kinds of stuff
Okay.
before you got here today. Let me just check that I have Artist King.
Oh yeah, I see it.
I'm wearing the Artist King channel and the. Oh, I see. Here we go. Let's try that. You're on. Okay.
Yo, this Bone Crusher, and you're watching the Art is King podcast.
Oh, no, that's not.
Ah!
Yeah, alright. All right, everybody. We are back. This is DTM. You are looking at me right now. In front of me, we have the awesome Keef Cross. What's up? Yo.
Hey, how you doing?
Let me make sure that I have him nicely focused. I think there's some work that can be done to get him in focus a little bit more. Working. Oh, it's okay. That went the other way. There we go. Nice. I think that looks good. If anybody is on watching us right now on Facebook and or YouTube and has some feedback, please post it. I am paying attention and looking at the stream, so we'll be ready to answer your questions at any time. My name again is DTM. We are here at Sam Flax. They're giving us awesome space to go ahead and live stream from the classroom. It's an amazing space. We're in the second floor, and from up here you can see the rest of the store and check out some of the clearance items that are happening. Please stop on through, say hello, and let's sit down and talk. I'm gonna have to restart this machine because something is not right. All right, so we're like to give a shout out to all our sponsors, and we're gonna go ahead and run through that. It's only a few logos. Make sure you support them. Here we go. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. This is DTM. I'm back. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Big ups to everybody who's been supporting and watching. Thank you everybody who's tuning in right now. This Masters of Storytelling is a live stream podcast by Artist King, hosted by myself, DeltaTangoMike. And the purpose is to shine the light on artists and creatives who created something that is out in the market today, or a product or service that serves the people, the community, and it involves some bit of storytelling. So today's artist we have is Keef Cross, and I'm going to try to manage the sound. Hopefully it sounds a little bit better. Let me try this one. How about now? Okay, I like it. All right, so let's turn the camera over to Mr. Keef Cross. How you doing, sir?
Doing good. How you doing, man?
Yes, we're
Thanks
doing
for having me
good.
again.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. So yesterday we talked about where your creativity comes from, your motivation for creating the comic book, and today we're going to jump a little bit into some of the lessons learned in developing the comic book and film. Like, what are some of the things that you wish you knew before you started the film?
Well, one of the biggest lessons I learned when bringing the comic book to life was the art of collaboration with other people that have something else in stake, something else to stake with your property. So with the DayBlack film, I went pretty much in collaboration with Justin Jordan, who was the director, and you'll find that when you're working with other people, sometimes you have different visions of what you think the product should be. But sometimes you have to learn to bend when somebody else has their finances tied up into it too. Sometimes you have to compromise and make changes to satisfy another person, but not to the point where it totally compromises your story. But I had to do that with the DayBlack film, and really a lot of it was more personal choices as far as, or personal aesthetics that me and him may have had differences on. But in the end, it still came out good. It still is a version of DayBlack that I'm proud of. It's not, I don't feel like it's the definitive version because we did what we could with what we had, with the limited resources we had. So I just wanted to make something that could show what it was capable of doing, you know?
So you didn't make a definitive film. It's just like an episode, a scene of the overall idea.
Yeah, it's more like an interpretation.
An
interpretation of it, of what it could be, of the direction we wanted to go in. But like, it was just little things like we couldn't, our actor Eugene, he couldn't grow a beard because he was at the time doing, I think, Hamlet at the Fox Theater, so he couldn't grow a beard out. So that was one thing that we couldn't have. And then budget constraints. Like, if anybody's read the book, you know Merce has these dreams with these two-headed lions. But, you know, obviously we couldn't get a two-headed lion in there, so we had to cut a lot of stuff.
You couldn't rent a two-headed lion. You couldn't raise one.
Get one of those
you couldn't
days.
Build
you know?
one in the lab.
No, we couldn't. So we just had to kind of had to retailer the movie according to the resources we had available. You know?
So it sounds like there were two things that you mentioned right now. One was working with what you have, you know, and a couple of things actually, and then collaboration and compromise, and he who has the money makes the rules, kind of thing.
Exactly.
But because you want to at least have, and the way I get it is, you wanted to at least have a look into what a film could be featuring DayBlack,
right,
and the characters of DayBlack's story.
right.
Yeah. So when you set out to do it, what was your purpose or main idea of why you wanted to do it, besides you seeing it yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm a big film buff, even more so than comics. At this point in my life, I grew up on comics, but it got to a point where I got interested in film like way harder. So I started to notice the trend of so many comic books being turned into films, and it just felt like the natural progression. And I feel like if it's done right, or even like television series, I feel like if it's done right, it can have more longevity than a comic book can, you know? I feel like, and initially I wanted to shoot a movie, but then I started watching shows like True Blood, Breaking Bad, and Walking Dead, and you know, all these. This is like around the time where TV shows were becoming better than movies. Like they were like movie quality television series. And I was like, wow, that just gives you, because it seems like if you do a movie, you can put it out there and it could bomb. But if you have a series, you have more time to get the kinks out, torque the characters, and rework things and give it a little chance to kind of breathe a little bit more than if you do a film. It's like if you have a film, it's just like, bam, that's it. So I just felt like with a series, and plus with DayBlack, I have so many secondary characters that live in this town that it just lends better to a series, because it's like so many other branches we can go off into, you know?
Okay. I like that. I never thought about it like that. When I saw film, I thought it was like we're doing a movie.
Yeah.
And but it's a film in itself, but you're looking at it more as an episode type of thing.
Yeah, like I look at it more as like a pilot right now. Like at first, I felt like it was a short film, but now I feel like it's more like a pilot, especially with the cliffhanger ending. Like everybody always asks, like, "What's next? What happens next?" You know? So, you know.
So how tough is it to find people to collaborate with who can see your vision and share your enthusiasm for the project?
Well, actually, that part wasn't hard at all. I was blessed. My wife, like I said before, is an actress, and she had a lot of people that she knew that I was able to draw from. And the great thing about it is, once I tell people what the concept is, everybody seems like really is into it and really seems intrigued by it. So I've never really had anything but support on that level. The hardest thing about it has been not finding someone that wants to work with you, but finding someone who you feel like can add to your vision and improve upon it, if anything, but not necessarily make it their own, if I'm making any sense. Like, you still want to make sure that it's yours, but sometimes when people come in, and like I said before, when they have something at stake in it, they want to kind of take over and make it their vision. So you really have to realize, you really have to know your characters, and you have to know your story, because if you don't know your story from beginning to end, like the back of your hand, that leaves wiggle room for people to come in and suggest little things, or, well, you don't really know what's going on here, well, maybe we should do this. They're like, no, I know exactly what happens. Now, if we're going to change anything, it's going to be because it's not practical to shoot, or we can't afford to shoot it right now, but it's not because you feel like it shouldn't go there. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And I think what you're mentioning now is like a dilemma between creative forces, because it takes somebody to write the story, it takes somebody to shoot it, it takes somebody to edit it, it takes somebody else to oversee the whole project and stuff. And all of us get into it because we're creative and we want to build something and create something, but all of those kind of forces start to butt heads a little bit because they feel that they have something to give.
Or like just on the DayBlack set, for instance, like there were times where certain actors or actresses would say how they think a character should say something or how they think they should act, and they're telling me, and I'm like, I only wrote it. I only know these. I've only been writing these characters for like years and years. Like I know, you know what I'm saying? But But sometimes, and the thing about that is sometimes you can be so close to your characters that sometimes when you have an outside eye looking in, they may bring up things that you might not have necessarily seen. And sometimes it could be a good thing. Sometimes it could be an eye opener. And that's another thing about collaboration. You really have to be open. If you're going to decide to collaborate with somebody, you have to be open. You can't be so rigid that you're not willing to bend, because that is collaboration, you know?
Right. Did you set out and give each other a the role and the definition and how much input you can have, or is that something you worked out later, or is that one of those lessons where you have to know your place and put people where they should fit?
Well, in this instance, Justin really gave me all the freedom as the writer, because he trusted my writing, but he did push me to because everything was, when you're shooting a movie, everything is determined on time, and what are we going to do in this time frame. We have these cameras rented for this amount of time, so everything had to fit in a certain time block. So okay, I wrote a day's worth of dialogue, but we're done talking in about 5 minutes, but it has to go for 20 minutes. You know what I'm saying? So it stretched me as a writer. So if anything, Justin showed me definitely how to do that when you're translating something to film, because you can read a book and just flip through the pages and read it pretty fast, a comic book. But when you're writing something, I don't know, it's a different, I don't know, it's just a different flow to it that it has to take up a little bit more time. So, and other than that, Justin was really open with me. He was really supportive and everything that I thought about. Like I said, if he made any changes, it was usually just due to his technical limitations of what he was able to do and what he couldn't do. And he was like, okay, this scene is great, but we have to cut that out. But other than that, it was a great overall experience.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about your process with the actual comic book, because now you have full total control. And did you ever cut back on some of the scenes and environments because it takes a lot of drawing to do?
Yes. If you look at if you read DayBlack, you will see that there's very little background, anything. Like, I don't like drawing backgrounds, you know, at all. Buildings, like I think I had one issue where you see criminal records I drew in there just for the sake of shouting them out. Like, I'm going to draw this building. But no, it's just really boring and hard. Like, anything that's kind of, it's the same thing with portraits for me. Anything that has to look like something, I kind of don't want to do it, because I like to be able to do what I want to do. But if, like, all right, I know if I'm drawing this picture of this lady, it should look like her. Or if I'm drawing a picture of this building, it needs to have these points of perspective to look right. And it is cool, but I don't like to do it. And, you know, but that's why I like to have my images to be so complex that you not really feel like you're missing the background, because you're so focused on the foreground or what's going on in front of you. You know. But again, I'm trying to get out of that. Like, I'm still trying to stretch myself as an artist, just because you don't want to stay in your comfort zone and just keep drawing the same thing. And who knows, I might love drawing buildings. I doubt it, but I might. I might love. I remember taking perspective or something like when I was in college, and it was so tedious and so boring. Just like drawing the arrow with the all those. Yeah,
the vanishing point.
Yeah, no. I hated all that stuff. I was like, oh my God, let me just draw the guy that's in this.
I think I just wrap it on your neck like this. And do it one more time. There you go. That's it. That's cool. So that was going to lead into my next question, which was going to be, are you going to push yourself to create more environments? Because we're living in a town called DayBlack. And so I guess it's nighttime most of the time. So I guess you're not going to have like big landscapes or nothing. Right. But we still need to start seeing some things that we recognize, right? Outside of the tattoo shop.
We do.
So so that is the plan, to go ahead and practice a little bit.
That is the plan. Every issue I think I get a little better at doing this. You know what I'm saying? So every issue I kind of want to, with the art and with the writing, I still try to stretch myself and expand my capabilities. So every issue I do is a learning experience. Trying to read more comics now, because that's one thing about for me, like ever since I started creating a comic book, I stopped reading comics. Like I can't even pick up a comic, because whenever I start to, I'm like, you can't read this. You have your own book you got to do. Like, it's waiting on you. Put that shit down and work on your book, you know? But I need to really start doing that just so I can kind of see what's going on out there and what people are doing and how different artists that I respect and admire are doing things. So, you know, it's still good to draw on your influences. Not necessarily rip anybody off, but just kind of see what's going on, you know?
Right. Yeah, that's one of those things that you feel that you want to invest some time into also enjoying that thing that you're creating, but
it's hard. It's just like being an artist. It's like it's like being a visual artist. Like I wish I could have the feeling that non-artists have when they look at art. You know what I'm saying? Like they're like, wow, this piece is so like I don't have that feeling anymore. Like when I look at art, I'm looking at like, yeah, that's tight. But you know what I'm saying? I know what I can. It's hard to explain. It's like you don't have that same feeling when you do it. It's just like filmmakers when they look at films. They're looking at the editing, or they're looking at the costume, or the wardrobe, or the music. They can't really enjoy it because they're already in it.
Yeah.
So all you can do is really look at it and kind of critique it and kind of see what they did right, what they did wrong. So it's kind of like a gift and a curse, man. Like you can't really even enjoy what got you into it in the first place once you start doing it, you know?
And I think for me, one thing that happens a lot is that I'm looking at it and I'm studying it now.
Right.
So I'm trying to see, look at
It's
angles.
not just for enjoyment. It's like, all right, how did they do that? How can I do that? How can I, get mine on that level? You know?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So when preparing for the comic book, and yesterday you say you don't not organized, but did you plan out different issues to hit different points? Did you read out loud the script? Did you write the script first?
Yeah.
Well,
I wrote when we shot the DayBlack film, I wrote it kind of in tangent with the first issue. So when we did the film, the first issue wasn't even really out yet. So that's why, if you've seen the movie, you'll notice it's a little bit different than Volume 1. And it kind of tells you what happens later on in the issues, like in the first episode. You're going to see stuff that wasn't even revealed in the comics yet. That's because we had to condense the story and kind of just make it a cohesive story for 19 minutes. Because if we didn't do that, it wouldn't have made any sense. So long story short, I did write the script, and it wasn't too much different. Like I said yesterday, or at our other video, that I used to read a lot of screenplays and things like that. So when I write, I'm already writing from the perspective, or like in a screenplay, it might say camera pans to the right, sees a man walk through the door, he sits down. I was already writing like that when I did the comic book, so it wasn't that hard of a transition. And what was the other question? Sorry.
Did you start the pacing from the beginning?
Yes. And so there was, when I had my editor, he would tell me, okay, this issue was action heavy, so the next issue needs to be a little more not so action heavy, a little bit more dialogue heavy, or this issue was very bloody and serious, so this one should be a little more lighthearted, just to kind of switch the pace up. So I did learn a little bit about that, and pacing is a big part. The pacing, I feel like, is really where you really get to see how good of a storyteller you are, because it's just those little moments between big moments what keeps the story going. It's just those little increments that lead to larger things is what really, because you can't just have a book with splash pages. Everything can't be a big.
They can't.
Yeah, you gotta have those little moments to build up to that.
Yeah,
That just stretches you as an overall storyteller to be able to do that.
So now, when you're looking at comic books, do you look for how they tell the story and how they pace it? Also,
like I said, I don't read comic books anymore.
Oh, you don't, not anymore.
I don't. Only thing I read is my book. But all I can speak on is when I used to read comic books.
Is there something that stands out when you used to read comic books and now you're like, oh, I get it. I can see why they did that?
Man, I will say that I can see where a lot of my influences come from looking back. Like Barry Windsor Smith, his run on the Weapon X comic, the Wolverine Weapon X issue, was a really influential book for me, because there was so much that he did without any dialogue. I was really big on stuff like that, like telling the story without words. And the way he drew and the way his panels were set up, you could really just look and not have to read anything. Also, like with the Brother Man comics, I noticed for those, it taught me how to, as far as my writing goes, shout out to Guy Sams who wrote that. It taught me, the thing about Brother Man, it was so naturalistic, like the way they spoke and the humor and the expressions, everything just felt so familiar that it really, it was really relatable to me, and that's what I tried to get across in DayBlack. It's like, everybody in DayBlack is black. Everybody in DayBlack, yeah, they black. You know what I'm saying? But and the dialogue is something that I feel like black people are gonna kind of feel that it's reminiscent of something that they know. But I don't think it's exclusion to anybody that's not black. You know. But there are just little dialects and little things I think only brown people are really gonna get or appreciate. You know. So yeah, Brother Man Comics, Barry Windsor Smith, Jim Lee. Steve McNiven is awesome. Wendy Penny from ElfQuest. Like, these are all people that were really, Mike Mignola. All these people were really, really influential on how I tell a story now, visually and story-wise. You know,
Nice.
Chris Claremont, you know, Arthur Adams. I can go on. And on. The new people, not so much. I don't really know, but definitely the old guys.
So, looking at something happened. Yeah, we're good. Okay, cool. I had the other question and I left it. So when it's time to launch the book, did you see yourself as, or did it something that you thought that was going to have to happen? Because part of what other comic book artists do is that you go around, do lots of shows, and do a lot of sign-ins. Is this something that you were prepared for, or something that you hadn't thought about? How was that planning go for something like that?
Well, I'm pretty much an introvert. So when I'm around a bunch of people at one time, if you ever see me out at doing shows or doing these events, 9 times out of 10, I'm not very comfortable, and I'd rather be at home. You know what I'm saying? Unless I'm having a drink. If I'm having a drink, then everything's good. But if I'm not, I'm usually like, okay, I'm ready for this to be over with. But those things are important because not so much, you don't really do shows and conventions. I mean, you want to sell some books, of course, but it's really all about networking, and it's about reaching out and meeting your fans, because that makes them support you more. Like when they can come out and they can see you and they can talk to you and they can see that you're not an asshole. You're like I remember, I met Mike Mignola that draws Hellboy, and at the time he was my top artist, like my favorite artist of all time. I went and met him, and he was just the biggest jerk to me, man. Like I stood in line to meet him, and he was like, jerk. And I haven't read anything from him since then. Like I won't buy anything that he's done, you know, just because, you know, I guess it's like the saying goes, never meet your heroes.
Yeah.
You know, so you want to make sure that when your fans do meet you, that you're approachable, that you're gracious, at least for me. You know what I'm saying? I always but I mean, I'm like this anyway, so it's not really hard for me because I am appreciative that you're here to see me, or that you read my book, or that you're like, yeah, I want volume 2, but I already got volume 1. I'm like, hell yeah, thank you, you know? So anytime I meet someone like that, I'm always grateful. But that's why I do the shows, because it also puts a battery in my back too, to really, it kind of reaffirms what you're doing this for. Because it's like, if you do it, if you just kind of work in a vacuum and you're not out there really seeing the fruits of your labor and seeing what people really think about your book, it's like it's hard to really gauge the impact you're having for me. You know, like when I'm out there, I know I know the impact that I'm having from people that telling me and people that showing up and buying it and bringing other books that they bought just for me to sign it, you know. So all that stuff is just reaffirming for me.
And it sounds like you want to be in your community while you're working on your project, because the community is the one who's going to read it and support it anyway. Yeah, so you want to be out there on the street.
You do. You should. Yeah.
See the reaction in their face.
If you can be, yeah. You know, because it's like everything. People want the story. Like people like your book, but they want to know what your story is too. That's just a part of the package. You know. And
it's not like you can just write a book, make a book, and then sit in the basement.
No. I mean, you probably could. I mean, you really probably could if you got it like that. But
you probably need a team or something, right?
Yeah, if you got it like that where you don't have to leave the house, I'm sure you could. But it's fun. I mean, like as far as me being an introvert, like it's just certain events. Like if I'm at a comic book event, I'm a little more at ease because I know everybody is here for comics. But sometimes I do other events where I might be the only comics guy there, and I'm like, okay, nobody's really trying to buy comics, so I'm ready to go, you know. But sometimes that works for you though. Sometimes if you're the only comics guy there, it makes you stand out and people want it. You know, like you might, like I've done shows where I'm the only comics guy, and there's somebody doing pottery, and there's somebody selling jewelry, and there's somebody with fragrances, you know. So, you know, you just right now I'm doing pretty much everything that comes up because I'm just trying to get the word out, man. You know. Trying to get the word out on DayBlack, so no event too small right now.
Right.
Well, no, I'm not gonna say that.
No event too small.
some, you know, you don't want to be there and you're in there with a bunch of high schoolers next to you. You know what I'm saying? But unless they're all good, some of these high schoolers are killing it. So I'm not even gonna say that.
And some kids in school nowadays that got money. They got their own little jobs and they're gonna spend it.
Exactly.
Spend the money. So the business of being a creative person, being a comic book artist, how much time do you spend drawing and creating the work, and how much time compared to the time you spend promoting it on social media, doing the live appearances, how much which one takes more time?
Well, when I'm in the creative process, when I'm actually, because usually when I finish a book, I usually step away from it for at least a few months, 2 or 3 months, because by that time, or I would have devoted so much time day in and day out to writing and drawing, to the point where when it's done, I don't want to have to see anything that has to do with it for a while. So that's usually the time. And it's also funny because as I'm creating and with social media, I always have an urge, oh, I finished a page, let me post it. I finished this page, let me post it. But I looked up, by the time I did that, I posted the whole fucking book. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you got to pick and choose what you post. Otherwise, somebody can just go to your Instagram and read the whole book, you know?
Right. I don't think anything's wrong with that.
I don't know, but I mean, it kind of deters. I mean, if somebody is such a geek, they just want the physical copy. But if somebody just wants to read the story, they're like, I can just read it right now and I'm good.
Right.
You know, so I just got to, so what I try to do is I'll do maybe the sketches and I won't have the finished one on there yet, but you'll kind of see the process.
Right.
You know, I think that's cool.
I'm okay with that. I like that too.
Like pretty much showing my work pretty much before I ink it in. And but after I'm done with the book, then that's usually when I start. But I really promote and work at the same time. Like when I'm in DayBlack mode, I'm in like DayBlack mode. Like I'm not working on it currently because I just finished issue 7 not too long ago. So right now I'm still gathering my thoughts for issue number 8. But in the meanwhile, I'm always, everything I post is like 80%, 90% DayBlack anyway. You know, so, and that's just to keep it going, you know what I'm saying? And just
so that gap of time, you give yourself time to recharge.
Yeah. And to live life. Because a lot of the stuff I do is just like based off of stuff I'm going through.
Yeah.
If I wrote all of this and I went through this, I'm like, all right, let me just live a little bit. Let me get pissed off. Let me get happy.
Right.
Let me get sad. Let me get depressed. And then when I go through all of that, let me write it down and draw it.
Yeah, so you need more adventure time.
Yeah,
it's adventure time, so you can get the experiences and then get back onto writing.
You gotta have that itch, man. Like I'll be done with it, then I'll just get that little something tugging at me, like, hey, you know. And I start getting that urge to want to start creating. So even I might, and that's why I'm not even really doing a lot of art shows right now because I'm just trying to focus on DayBlack. And anytime away from that, I feel like it's taken away from it. And that's really I like doing art shows, I like painting, but at this point, I have a mission, and that's kind of, that would kind of sidetracking what I need to do right now. Painting is fun, I like to do it, but this is my passion, like illustrating, you know.
Right, and I like to look at as when it's time to paint, when it's time to do a mural and stuff like that, it allows me to refresh. Right. So you don't have to do something because the community is doing it or because there's an event coming up, but do it because you want to refresh yourself and stop doing the digital drawing or the pencil drawing or the tattoos, and then spend a few days painting, getting yourself into your own zone, your own mode.
And then because like DayBlack is so black and white, and it's really rigid. I feel like when I do color, it frees me up, you know, and that's really where I get to just kind of let loose and just use every color I want. But then at the same time, when I see certain shows come up and I see the lineup, like I might get an invitation for this show and A, B, and C is in it. I'm like, oh, I got to do this. And then I want to show. Then when I see who I'm up in the show with, I got to show my ass on this. So it's that competitive spirit too. Like
Right.
if I do like to paint, it's usually for that reason too. Like I'm going to be in this lineup and I'm going to stand out. You know.
I see.
So
Yep. Well, your artwork definitely stands out no matter what medium because you have a definite style.
thank you.
And we've talked about this before, but tell me, how did you develop that style? Where did that, all that line work to define volume and shading comes from? How did you figure that out? And who else is drawing that?
As far as the cross hatching goes, honestly, that came out of laziness because I didn't want to. I knew rendering with a pencil is a lot more involved. Getting those shades of gray. With pen and ink, it was like, all right, am I going to do stippling or am I going to? I don't know. So I just felt I'm not gonna say it was all laziness, but I knew I didn't feel like. See, the thing about with art for me is it has to be fun and it has to be easy. If it's not fun and it doesn't flow, I don't want to do it. It's like too much like work. So it has to be simple. It has to be quick. I could hatch and just do it, and it just kind of my hand just kind of takes over, and it just kind of happens. So it has to be like that for me. It can't be meticulously trying to get this. Like I'm not trying to beat a photograph. Like I'm not trying to get something so realistic that you can't tell if it's like I'm not interested. Me personally, that's just not my thing. So with the cross hatching, it was just a way for me to fill up a space with it still being light, with it still kind of looking simple. And I think that comes from when I used to trace a lot. Like everything kind of looks simple and unfinished, but the lines kind of completed, I guess, while still making it look kind of still light. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but how I came up with that, I have no idea. Again, another artist, Barry Windsor Smith. If you don't know who he is, Google him, Barry Windsor Smith. If you look at his work, it's real heavy on cross hatching and lines. And he wasn't a direct influence when I was doing DayBlack, but it's not like I sat down like, hey, I'm going to try to do this out. It's just one of those things where you grow up reading and admiring somebody and it comes out that way. You know, and even though mine looks completely different than his, because his is on a whole way other level than what I'm doing, but it's still probably a nod to that. So
Nice.
it was just a quick way for me to render, because at first, the first DayBlack, it was all pretty much black and white, stark black, white, no hatching, but it was hard. This is it right here.
There we go. You finally.
Yes, and I finally realized why I did it. So when I first started doing it, everything was black and white. So the problem was it was hard to tell the foreground from the background because everything was one tone. The black and white characters were the same as the black background. So it was kind of hard. I was having a hard time figuring out what was what. So I started hatching in the characters just to make them kind of stand out from the heavy blacks I was using in the back. That's it.
Okay, that's good. And it's the amount of distance between the lines, the hatching, and the spacing that then gives you the dark shadows and the light shadows and so on. I like it. It's awesome.
And a lot of times,
Beautiful.
like I'm just doing it. Like I don't really have a method to it. I just do it. I just do it, man. And if it comes out right, and it usually comes out right for me, like it just does. I can't explain how. Or why. You know, I don't know. I don't know how.
And the black and white for DayBlack the comic is that a way to not have to fiddle with color, or is that because it's the setting and because it adds to the surrealism of the story?
Right.
It actually works.
Yes.
Sure. Let's go with the yes.
It came out. It came out because all right, I don't feel like coloring this whole book. This is a lot of color. You know what I'm saying? That was one reason. The second reason was I was always a big fan of Frank Miller and what he did with Sin City. I always thought that was amazing. And I always liked drawing black. Even before I started this, I was doing black and white illustrations, like pen and ink. Like I was already doing it. And I really liked the style I was working in, which is vastly different from my color work. So I just thought I would stick to that because, and then at the time, I didn't really know I'm not at the time, even now, I'm still not so computer savvy where I could really color it in and have it look consistent with the, you know, it's so much, I mean, you can scan some in, but the colors might not match with the black ink you use and it looks dusty or, you know, so just to X all that out, I'm just going to do this book in black and white, but I'm just going to have red. And I found a way to turn that into a part of the story showing that vampires are colorblind except for the color of red. So that was just a way to justify me doing it black and white and red, you know.
Okay, very cool. Yeah. Since you're doing the book by yourself, you don't want to extend yourself
Right.
to
Right. Exactly.
put out this creative thing
Exactly.
together.
And I'm not saying I wouldn't do a coloring, just like James Mason, the colorist James Mason. He has a book called Urban Shogun, UrbanShogunComics.com, I think. But he actually colored a couple of alternative covers for Volume 2, and they actually look really good.
Yeah, I saw those.
Yeah, and I was
he's
like,
bad.
damn, you know what I'm saying? Like, I wouldn't be opposed to coloring it, like, or working with a colorist, because the books are black and white. It'd probably be easy to color it, you know what I'm saying, for a colorist. But just because I have that whole aspect about it being black and white, as far as it being colorblind, I would want to stick to that. Maybe the next DayBlack story, we could play around with color more. But for this first arc, which is going to probably be about 10 issues until I move on to the next story.
That's where the story is going to complete itself for now.
Story,
so three more
issues, yeah. Then the next one is going to move on to his werewolf buddy, Windsor.
Nice. And you know what I was thinking right now is that maybe we need to have a coloring day for DayBlack, where it's just like the way you do coloring books and stuff.
Because people are like, you how to make a coloring book. I'm like, well, it is a coloring book. Like, it literally is one. You're just not going to need a red crayon. You're good.
Yeah. The red is already filled in.
The red is good. I took care of that for you.
Oh, man. So back to the business. What's been your social media strategy so far? You say you don't like, you do the progress shots, but you don't want to do the full page posting as you're making them. So how else are you engaging with fans of DayBlack, or how are you creating them into fans, turning them into fans?
Well, what I just realized is that even though I might post something a while ago, like everybody hasn't seen everything. So I repost a lot of old stuff just to get a lot of new followers linked in, and that keeps me pretty busy just to show like first versions of the book or old sketches. Like I don't have this social media thing all the way figured out. You know, I'm still kind of. I just know I'm not really gonna have a whole page full of pictures of myself. You know,
right?
Selfies. Like I'm posting some art. You know, because that's what I'm there for. You know, ultimately, if I didn't have the art, I probably wouldn't even be on social media. You know,
because you're an introvert.
Yes. I am an introvert, but social media lends to that though. When you are an introvert, you can really kind of just get out there. But I'm an introvert, but when I'm called upon, you wouldn't know it. You know what I'm saying? Like I enjoy talking when I'm talking about something that I'm into. Like I'm not for the small talk. Like if I go to a event, like you can tell when you're being used for small talk. Like when people are like, hey, they're talking, they start just coming and talking to you, and like, oh, you just want to talk to somebody right now. Like I'm not that guy. So unless we're talking about something that I can add something to, like, you know, I'm not really interested. But
that's funny.
But you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know it. I think I hide it well, especially if I've had a beer or two. If I've had a beer or two, I'm a social butterfly. You wouldn't know it. But secretly, I'm ready to go home and take my shoes off.
You can tell that you are an introvert because you talk very measured and you act very measured. You know, so. Extroverts, they just all over and wild like me. I just go ahead and start talking. Let's go, whatever. Right. And you take your time and you answer the question.
I try to. I don't want to sound foolish.
Yeah.
So.
And you don't get like super surprised right away. Like you just let the moment pass and then you answer.
Yeah. You know.
Nice.
I'm just trying to sound. I'm on this platform. You're giving me a platform. I'm just trying to sound like I know. Which I know a little bit, you know, so I'm just trying to respect the platform that I have, and really am thinking about everything I say because I know somebody is listening or somebody can take something away from it. You know, I want to make sure that I give the best info that I have that I can remember. You know, I know every time I leave here, I always like, damn, I should have said that or I should have said this. Every time. I'm thinking some good shit when I get in the car. You know, I know when I should have said that.
You get on the phone. Ask me that question again.
Yeah, ask me that question. So I'm coming back.
Oh, man. All right, so we're going to wind this down and make sure that everybody tunes in on Thursday. We're going to be streaming live again from Sam Flax. You're welcome to come out and hang out with us while we stream. There's a whole lot of stuff going on. There goes Keef holding up issues number 7.
Issue number 7. If you have volumes 1 and 2, this is the one directly following volume 2. You can get it on peepgamecomics.com and soon at DayBlackComic.com.
Yeah, and No, I think you can get it.
We can get it at DayBlack
I think
Comic?
I don't remember putting up. Nah, I forgot now.
I don't think so.
But DayBlack Comic, you can get volume 1 and 2.
Yes, DayBlackComic.com.
You can go to and get the PDF. You can also buy the physical copy. And let's see, what did I do? I'm checking the website now. No, you're right. We have not put up the download for issue number 7. Yeah, that's missing. That needs to go up. There we go. But yeah, check out DayBlackComic.com. It's also a place where you can check out the film. I'm in it. I'm sitting there getting tattooed by Merce himself.
Right.
Getting my blood drawn. And it was a cool little scene. Yep. And so check him out. Last thing I'm going to ask you right now is, where are you going to be next? I think you mentioned some of the places.
Yes.
But this weekend you're going to be somewhere.
Friday, I'm going to be at Orpheus Brewery for, I think it's called Orphe Art. But if you go to my Instagram, at Keef Cross, you'll see a flyer for that. But that is at Orpheus Brewery from 5 to 10 on Friday. It's an artist market, so it's going to be me and a few other people there with some art. On the 29th, I'm going to be at the Red Button Show at Colette's. And that's a show put together by Courtney Brooks. And I think all the art is going to be round, on like round surfaces, nothing on, something like that. And they're going to have buttons. And I'm also going to be at the Atlanta Comic Book Convention October 4th, either October 4th or October 7th. But I'll be there. So right now, that's what I got going on. And
good. And I think so people should just check you out on Instagram, Keef Cross.
Yes.
Because you do post a lot of these flyers related to the events. So check him out. Go to Instagram.com/Keef Cross, KeefCross. And you'll see some of his artwork, some of the pictures and shenanigans that you post, some paintings. Yeah, very cool. And but then stay up to date on upcoming events where Keef Cross will be around, and I have copies for sale. So check him out. All right, we're gonna leave with a piece of advice when starting on a professional project with collaborators. What would you say people need to pay attention to?
I would say, like I said before, know your world, know your characters, know your book better than anybody, because if you don't, somebody will attempt to change it, not necessarily in a malicious way, but you just need to know what your story is, because if you don't, and if there's any question, it's going to be easier for you to be swayed to go in another direction. And then somebody may want to take credit for that one day. You know what I'm saying? Somebody might want to be like, well, I did this or I did that. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It could add value to your work. It could make your work better. But you just need to know it. You need to know your stuff first. And then it'll be your decision if you want to allow this change to happen and not out of uncertainty.
Yeah. All right. I love it. Well, thank you very much, sir. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you for being here with us for this hour. This is the Masters of Storytelling podcast live stream with Artist King. I am DTM. Find me anywhere on the internet, DeltaTangoMike. Check out artistking.org/events and to stay up to date on upcoming classes, workshops, demos, etc. So we'll be back here on Thursday. Tune in or come on out to Sam Flax. We have the whole classroom to ourselves. I am going to post some pictures up so you can see how this whole setup is. It's crazy. It takes me a long time to set it up, and I love it. All right, talk to y'all later. This is DTM. Peace out, yo.
Cool.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let me.
We're doing part 3 Thursday.
Yeah.